Okay, want to welcome everybody to the 7th class. We've only got 2 more after this till we get to the April 9th test. Thank everybody for coming, braving the coronavirus. We're lucky here in Effingham County. So far it hadn't shown up to my knowledge, so we're still fairly safe. But even with that, we have taken some precautions just to be on the safe side, hand cleanser and that kind of stuff. Those of you watching online, we're going to be doing Chapter 7 tonight. Chapter 7 is all about license regulations and privileges. What you actually can do, not do, and where you can do it all on the air when you finally get your license. Your license, I checked today, the latest technician class license is KD9 POD or PDO, I think it was. So you guys will be getting, your call signs will be KD9P something something. If you want to look it up, you can go to Ham Data online, and they'll always give the daily updates on the call signs. The license rules. The license authority for the amateur radio is the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. That is one of the possible questions on the test. I'm not sure if it's on these got coming up or not, but everyone should be able to get that right. It's the FCC. It's Uncle Charlie. If you ever hear a ham radio operator talking about Uncle Charlie, they're talking about the FCC. Back in the 50s or 60s, there was a guy named Charles somebody who was the head of the FCC, and he was a really advocate for amateur radio, but he also made amateur radio operators toe the line. You know, and so you did not want to get a letter from Uncle Charlie. It means you messed up somewhere. But that's the FCC. Part 97, I showed you the booklet. I've got a Part 97. That's got all of our rules and regulations that we have to abide by. There's really not that many. It's not that big of a book, fairly small. In case you're wondering, the CB operators, they have Part 95. And yeah, it's usually just called just Part 97, just as a short. Ham radio. These 5 things is what ham radio is all about. I know there is one question on the test that the answer is one of those. So make sure you kind of got those down pat. You'll see it, just you recognize it automatically because the bad answers, the wrong answers, are so far-fetched from some of these. But it is providing emergency communications capability. Now, emergency communications, a lot of people think, well, that means that a ham radio operator is going to be standing next to a cop or a firefighter somewhere out on the scene. Don't mean that at all. Because face some cold, hard facts here, the equipment they've got nowadays is better than our equipment. If their equipment fails, our equipment has already failed. They've got good stuff. What we do for emergency communications is like for nonprofit groups. The Red Cross, help them at their parking lot, you know, if they needed parking. For parades, if the March of Dimes would want to do a parade for life, you know, one of those things. That's kind of emergency communications we do. Red Cross in our county, we were set up, and we are set up that if the Red Cross would ever have to put up shelters, we've got stuff set back where we can go put up a communication station for them. That's our community responsibility, really. As far as the advancement of arts and the sciences, advanced communications and technical skills, those two, the first two, are probably some of the most important stuff we've got that we can help the general public with. To provide trained reservoir of operators and technicians, that kind of goes along with that providing emergency communications. And then of course there's to promote and enhance international goodwill. I want to stress upon you guys again, if you're on 10 meters and talking somewhere else in the world, you are representing the United States of America. So you got to be kind of careful on what you say. Amateur service. No pecuniary interest. That means you can't make any money using amateur radio. No money whatsoever. It's to the point where if, like our club, the National Trail Amateur Radio Club, would set up a radio station at the Altamont Warming Center, for instance, we could not even take donations to repay us for the gas that we use for the generator if we needed a generator. We cannot accept any money for using amateur radio. The amateur operator, that's what you guys are going to be. You're going to be the actual operator, the person that keys the mic and talks. Now, the amateur station is your equipment. We'll go in a little bit deeper with the amateur operator and amateur station in just a little bit, and we will go into that a little bit more depth because a lot of people don't understand it. There is no age limit or citizenship requirement for amateur radio. Here in the county, we licensed one girl that was, I think she was 8 years old at the time. As far as citizenship restrictions, there's only one restriction, and that is if you're a diplomat from a foreign country representative, you can't get an American ham radio license. If you're the butler for the diplomat, if you're the cook for the diplomat or the babysitter for the diplomat's kids, they can get a ham radio license, but the actual representatives are not allowed to be licensed. And here we go. The license is actually two parts. About 3 weeks, you guys will be getting one of these things. This is the actual copy of the ham license. Used to, the FCC would send these papers out to you. Now you go online and you download them and get them that way. This thing is actually two licenses in one. First of all, it gives you the call sign. It gives you permission to be the operator. You can actually transmit on a ham radio equipment. And transmit is that magic word. Anybody can receive on the amateur frequencies, but when you go to transmit, you have to have an operator's license. Then there's a station license also on this thing. One of these statements right here says the operator license, the other is station license. Same call sign. The station license is your actual equipment that's capable of transmitting on the amateur bands. Like I said, anybody can go out and buy a ham radio, and he can set it there in his living room, and he can listen to the ham bands all he wants. But if he wants to talk, he has to have two things. He has to have his operator license, the FCC giving him permission to transmit, and then that equipment he's got sitting there, it has to be licensed too. Now, it's the same call sign, but there is two extra, two radio licenses in one in these things, the operator and the station license. There are the three levels, technician, general, and amateur extra. Of course, you're getting your technician, and I hope all of you guys storm ahead and get your general class license. I hope you all upgrade to amateur extra in the future. There used to be novice, years back, to give you a little bit of history. Novice was, you had to take a 5-word-a-minute code test. That's one letter every 2 seconds and pass a written test. Then you got your technician class, and you always upgraded to technician because technician class gets to operate on VHF and UHF, which is the local repeaters. Then there was a general class. Above general class, there was a class called the advanced class. They did away with it, and then above the advanced was the amateur extra. So right now, it's just technician, general, and extra, amateur extra. And, well, I'm sure you guys will remember that. You really need to. The examinations, volunteer VEs. Doug and I are VEs. We're volunteer examiners. And Bill, we're all volunteer examiners. We are the ones that will actually give you the test. The way the VE program works is that once you get your general class license, you can then give tests for people wanting their technician class. Once you get your extra class license, then you can give tests to both extras, generals, and technicians. You get a give test for all three. So we're always looking for people to be VEs. It only takes 3 VEs to give a test anytime, anywhere. Used to we had to give like there was a certain day limit, advance notice of tests. We don't even have to do that anymore. All that's needed is 3 VEs. We can give you a test anywhere at any time. The VEC, the Volunteer Exam Coordinators, there's about 3 or 4 of them here in the country. There's W5YI, and then there's the one that our club goes with. It's ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League. These are the organizations that actually provide us with the test booklets, with the answer sheets, and with 605 forms and all that stuff. They coordinate it. What we will do on the test is we'll have the 3 VEs go over your test papers, and if you pass, then we put everybody together in one big packet. We send it to ARRL in Newington, Connecticut, and then they've got people there that actually fill it out onto the database, shoot it straight to the FCC, and then you end up with your license that way. That's one of the costs of the $15 that we charge for the license fee. Part of that money goes to ARRL because those people they have doing the paperwork are employees and they have to get paid. Preparations. The way we suggest preparations around here is you read the book, you watch the slides, you go through the questions here, and then you go online and take the tests. A lot of people have been reporting to me that they've been taking these tests online, practice tests online, and even though we're just really 6 lessons into it, they are already getting 70s and 80s in their tests. So it's really important, I think, that you go to the online testing. It really will solidify your knowledge of the questions and answers. You study the content, the question pool, that question pool in the back of your books, there's a little over 400 questions back there. The VECs will take at random, it's a computer generated thing, and they will pull 35 of those questions out of there. Multiple choice, and then you have to get 26 of the 35 correct to pass. So, you know, it's with all the questions in the back, you should be able to have no trouble at all passing these tests. Taking the exam. What's going to happen on April 9th is that you'll be coming here probably about 15 minutes till 7 to get checked in. We'll take your $15, you return the books, you find a place to sit. I've already got the folders made up for everybody. We'll give you a folder that's got the test booklets and all the paperwork in it. At 7 o'clock, on the money, 7 o'clock, we start. We first start out by having everybody open up their folders, and you'll take out the 605 form. That's your actual request for a ham radio license. We'll fill it out. Basically, it's just putting in your name and address is all you guys have to do. This is one thing that I want to really caution everybody about, is when you're filling out those forms, use the best penmanship you can sum up. We have cases in the past where the FCC, actually ARL, they would get the spelling wrong of a person's name. Now, it's not a big thing to get all corrected, but it is a delay. So try to write in nice block letters and all that kind of stuff, you know. You'll have to have also your Social Security number. And there is one other thing, and it's relatively new. If you've been convicted of a felony, not a misdemeanor, not accused of a felony, but if you've been convicted of a felony, see me after the test is over. There's a little extra work you got to do. Basically, you got to send the FCC a letter saying why this conviction of a felony will not interrupt or deter your amateur radio activities. But that's fairly new. That just started maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe at the most. It'll be a proctored exam, which means there will be voluntary examiners, a couple of them just walking around the room while you're taking the test. There'll be sets of 4 VEs in the back actually grading your test. Every paper that you turn in, your answer sheet, your 605 form, that's your request for license, and your CSCE. The CSCE is the Certificate of a Successful Completion of the Test. It's your proof that you passed it until it gets online, until you get online. Each one of these pieces of paper have to be signed off by 3 people. That's why it takes a little bit longer to get your results done and checked off when you get to the back. We're hoping to have at least 3 VE separate little teams back there so we can get this paperwork through so you guys don't have to wait around late in the evening on the 9th to get your paperwork. They are multiple choice. Like I said, the fee pays for all the cost of stuff to putting on a test. The FCC said that if they put on a test, it would cost the federal government $15 a person. So we charge $15 a person. The license is free, but you do have to pay $15 to take the test, but it is free and it's good for 10 years. Now, it's renewable within 90 days of the expiration date. And what they're saying that is 90 days, 10 years from now, 90 days before your license expires, you can go online and renew your license. It will probably take you all of 5 minutes to renew it. It's super easy. It really is. You go online and do it. And if you're having trouble with it, by the way, you can also see anyone in the club here. We'll help you through it. You know, if we could get online wherever we're at, you know, we could get you guys your renewed your license with no problem. It really is quite easy. Some personal information is required. You guys taking the class here, you won't need anything special. We all know you. But, you know, we might get people out of the clear blue that we don't know come in. We might say, just want to see your name. Just something that easy. You will need the Social Security number and your current mailing address. And this is very important, too, because if the FCC, in fact, there's a question about it. If the FCC, for some reason, would want to write you a letter, which if you get a letter, you'd want to post it because hardly anyone ever gets a letter from the FCC. But if you do get, if they send you a letter and it comes returned back to them, they can pull your station license, which means you can't transmit on your radios anymore. They can also pull your operator license, which means you can't operate anymore, which means you can't even go to your friend's house that's got a license set and talk. So, and usually when they do pull it, they pull both your station license and your operating permit. The federal registration number. Every automobile has got a VIN, you know, that little number up in the windshield. This is the same thing. And every automobile's got a license plate. That's your call sign. That's the relationship between the two. You will be issued your FRN when you get your license. It comes on the thing, my FRN. It's a 10-digit number. Mine, well, you can't see it, but a little bitty number right here. That's me. That's when I do something with the FCC, that's the one it goes under. But anyway, it is the federal registration number, and it's like the VIN of a car. And then your call sign will be like the license plate. The responsibilities. You guys got a lot of responsibilities when you get your license. The first big thing is prevent unauthorized use of your radio station. If you're sitting there right next to the person, you can be the control operator, and they can talk on your radio. But if you are not there, then they cannot transmit on your equipment. They can listen, but they can't transmit. You'll need to provide personal information as required. This is getting your license. Like I said, we won't ask it because you guys have been coming to the class here and we all know you. You keep your current mailing address on file, and then making your station available for FCC inspection upon request. The FCC, if it's just a normal check, if you haven't been doing nothing wrong, but they can just pop in if they want to. They might see your tower out back. And they say, well, I'm going to go in and ask for it. They will probably only do it during the working hours of the day because they don't want to pay overtime to the field engineers. However, if you've been screwing with like a police transmitter, a fire department transmitter, causing hate and discontent on the air, they can come and check your equipment out anytime they get there. 1 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, or high noon. This is the wireless FCC site. Yeah.
On that, like you said, they typically would do that sometime between normal operating hours.
Yeah.
What about the people that work and are home at that time?
Okay. If there's somebody in that house, you have the responsibility of telling who's ever at home, yeah, the FCC gets to look at it. The question was for you that didn't hear him, what if you aren't at home when they come during the working hours to see your station? And you have to let them see your station.
On the other side of that, like in my house, when I'm at work, there's nobody.
Then it's not on you. Then they have to come back when you're there. But yeah, if there is somebody in the house that can give them access to your station, you have to let them have access to the station. This is the wireless FCC Gov's site, ULS, the end of it, that's Universal Licensing System. I've got that on a bookmark on my computer screen because I do go there that much. And by the way, once we get all the tests in and I send them in, I check that thing starting at about 1 week after we give the test. I start checking it, and then I'll be typing in your names, and I'll be seeing your call signs. And as soon as you guys get a call sign, I'll be sending out a mass email to everybody, so you'll know that way too. If you don't happen to want to go to the website, because that's the only place. You can go to another place called QRZ. That's the place that has the practice test. QRZ will also have call signs on there. But that's how you find out when you get a call sign, by going online. You do have to register online. It is free to register, of course. when you go there, and basically all it is you type in, they want to know your name and address, they'll want to know your amateur radio call sign and your FRN number, and you're registered. It's just about really that easy. And like I said, you can make changes to your address or other information. It's important really to make sure you got your current address, because like I said, if perchance they would send you a letter and it comes back addressee unknown, you could lose your license. You'd get it back, of course, when you finally update your equipment or update your information on there, but they can do it. You can renew your license on that thing. And of course, what I do a lot is search for other station information. You will be amazed. If I would search for Ed Your call sign or something, and it pops up, it would have your name, your address, all that stuff on there. So they do have just that personal information. And they do not have your social security number, though. Questions. Which of the following purpose is the amateur radio service as stated in the FCC rules and regulations? It's advancing the skills. I think this is the only question. You know, I said those 4 or 5 bullet points about amateur radio. I think this is about the only question on there, but it is for advancing the skills in the technical and communication phases of the radio art. So the other wrong answers are a little bit off the wall. So if you do happen to get this question, you should have no trouble getting it. And of course this one, who regulates the FCC? It's the FCC. The Federal Aviation Commission does the airplanes, FCC does communications. Airplanes, I don't know if you've noticed it, but all airplanes in the United States, their tail number starts with an N. All of our calls, there's a couple other letters, but ham radio call signs start with M. If you look at a plane from Great Britain, it'll start with a G. All ham radio call signs in Great Britain starts with a G. Just something you'll notice that way you can figure out where the country of origin of this airplane is by looking at the tail number. We'll be going over the call signs in this next section. Definition of a beacon. It is an amateur station that sends out a beacon to let you know. Now, you can use a beacon for 2 reasons. You can have your own beacon, by the way. You can put it up. But let's say you're in Ireland and you want to talk to the United States. Now, it would be hard for people in the United States just to try different frequencies to see if you happen to be bouncing into Ireland at the right time. But what a beacon is, a guy will start out, put up his own radio station, a ham radio station, starts out at a low power, slowly increases it up, and it basically just gives the call sign. So if you're going through the band just listening and you come across a beacon and you find out it's from Ireland, then you know that propagation between you and Ireland is probably in pretty good shape, so you could talk to Ireland. It's a beacon, just like a beacon of light. Satellites have the same thing. Satellites have got beacons on them. So you can just have it tuned to the beacon frequency and have your radio on in the background. And then you start hearing the beacon. It's get louder and louder. Then you can quick QSY to a different frequency and actually talk through the satellite when it makes the pass over. So that's what a beacon is. It's just like a beacon of light. Let you know that there's something there. This is it. About if they get get the letter back that they sent you, they can revoke your license, your station, or even suspension of your operator license. So you want to make sure your mailing address is current. Like I said, you know, once you get registered online at the ULS, it only takes just a matter of minutes to make the corrections. It really is quite easy. Normal term for a license is 10 years, and you guys will be amazed how fast 10 years goes by. It is nothing at all for at a club meeting or something, somebody to say, my license expires next year, or it has expired. Now, there's a grace period of about 2 years. Once your license expired, if you forget to renew it, you've got a 2-year period to renew that license. If you don't do it in that 2-year period, you got to retest again. But in that 2-year period of waiting, you cannot transmit. All you got to do is go to ULS and literally hit the little box that says renew, and that's all there is to it. So you've got the 2 years of grace period to renew license without having. I'll be telling everybody about it when we all fill out the forms at the same time on the 9th. If your name is Edward, right? But everyone calls you Ed. Make sure you put Edward up there. Don't put your nickname. If your name is Robert, put Robert up there. Don't put Bob or Bobby or something like that. Now, if you put Bob up there, for instance, then that has to be the same everywhere else on your CSCE. Leave it as Bob. You make sure that you keep the same exact name everywhere on the paperwork. There's 2 places where you guys will have 3 places you have to fill out your name and address. So make sure you use, you don't use nicknames. Use your real given name. There it is in that grace period. Like I said, you've got that 2 years of grace period to automatically renew your license. But during that 2-year grace period, you're not allowed to transmit. You can listen, but you can't transmit. And then which classes? We all know that there's 3 classes now: technician, general, and amateur extra. The technician class is what you guys are going for. There's 35 questions. The general class test has 35 questions, and the amateur extra has got 50 questions, and it gets quite deep. And when you're here taking the test, you take your technician test, and you pass it. And if you want to take the chance, you can go ahead and take the general test or the amateur extra test. But honestly, only do it if you think you've got a chance of actually passing it. The reason being, for you, if you would pass your technician and then take your general class test, that general class test, it will go back to the VEs. There'll be 3 of them checking everything, and it'll take a lot more time. And, if you really aren't prepared for it, you really don't want to waste people's time. Everyone wants to get home. Your license must be available to the FCC at any time upon request by an FCC representative. And like I said, if they would happen to come by your house, it'll be probably during the day. They don't want to pay the overtime, that kind of stuff. But if you're causing hate and discontent, it could be at any time. Some privileges. Now, what can you do with the technician class license? We're going to be talking about power privileges. There's a maximum of 1,500 watts peak envelope power, PEP, in ham radio. However, if you want to talk most of the time, you guys will be limited to 200 watts. So you're not allowed the full wattage like Doug or Bob or I or Ben would get. But you're still going to be given plenty of power. I've only used 200 watts my entire time I've been in amateur, and you're allowed 200 watts. You never use excessive power for the purpose. In other words, you use the least amount of power you can use to get the job done. Why use 200 watts when you can talk to somebody on 50 watts? If you use 200 watts, you're just putting more noise into the air. You can't see these very well, but these are some of the privileges and the power ratings that you've got. I don't know if you can see it too well from where you're at, but basically on 80 meters, you're CW, 40 meters, CW only, 15 meters, CW only, and then 10 meters, you're allowed CW, RIDI, data, and then in one portion of the 10-meter band, from 28.3 to 28.5, you're actually allowed to use single sideband, and that's where you get a lot of fun. So that's why you want to get up to your general class license. You get your general class license, you're allowed to 1.25 meter band. That is from 219 to 220. You're only allowed 50 watts. We'll be talking about the 220 band in just a little bit, about secondary privileges. Okay, this here, 300 over the frequency in megahertz will tell you the band. If you know this formula, you can figure out several questions on the test. They will ask you what frequency is in the 6-meter band. If you divide 6 meters into 300, it'll be 50. The 50 megacycles on the 6-meter band. So if you know how it's very simple math, of course. Just dividing the frequency into 300 will give you the band, or divide the band into 300 and it'll give you the frequency. It'll help you answer the questions. More emission privileges. Gosh, there's just so much. CW, data, TV, slow scan TV. The TV is regular fast scan TV. It's just like the television stations put out, right? But on the amateur frequencies. So this is a list of all the different stuff you can do. RIDI, which is radio teletype. In the old movies, they always show in the newspaper office, they see those typewriters automatically typing, clanking away. That's RTTY, radio teletype. And nowadays, of course, is data, which is the same thing except it's with computers instead of those old machines. Secondary and primary allocations. There are some of the frequencies that we use that we have to share with the business world. We are secondary users on those frequencies, and that means that they are the primary users of that frequency. We are not allowed to interfere with them. They can interfere with us, but we cannot interfere with them because we're the secondary operators on that frequencies. We must avoid interfering, like I said. We should not interfere with any of the primary users. The 220 megahertz band, it's been several years back. It was either FedEx, I think it was UPS. They wanted a slice of that 220 band right in the middle of where we get to use. They were going to use it for tracking. This was back before the current tracking was going down. But that was a big fight. Amateur radio put up a big fight because they wanted a pretty big wide spectrum of the 1.25 meter band, and that was going to interfere with us. So we put up a fight with it. It ended up that they didn't even use it at all. Frequency coordinators. A frequency coordinator, if you want to put up your own repeater, it's perfectly legal for you to have your own repeater. But you want to go to the Illinois Repeater Association. The Illinois Repeater Association is a total volunteer group of guys, and what they do is when you send in a frequency that you want to put your own repeater on, they will look at that frequency, and then they will look around Illinois, maybe Missouri, Indiana, to see if there's any other repeaters on that same frequency that you want to be on. If there is, and if it's close enough to you that your repeater and their repeater may interfere with each other, they will advise you to pick a different frequency. So that's what they do, and it's all volunteer. And you don't have to go to them. I mean, you can just put it up on your own. But if there ever is any complaints about another repeater system, like another club has got their repeater up and you're interfering with it, if the FCC gets called into it, they will take the part of the person that had the coordinated frequency. In other words, they'll tell you to leave and not the club, because the club had their frequency coordinated. And it's good amateur practice just to do it. Groups that help, they do this just to minimize the interference. Like I said, there's that repeater in eastern Kentucky that's on the same frequency ours is here. It's really cool when we've got the tropospheric stuff going on where we can hear the eastern Kentucky repeater. It's really amazing to, a repeater hearing it that far on a VHF frequency. Got to go back one here. Practice questions. Okay. What entities recommend and receive the frequencies? It's the volunteer frequency coordinators, recognized by local amateurs. And we really do that. The Illinois Repeater Association, they usually have a meeting, and I'm sorry, I don't know where it's at. It's up north somewhere, where any amateur radio operator can go up there and set in on it. We had a member of our club. He's Silent Key now. That's amateur radio talk for he died. He's a Silent Key now. He was a big active member in the Illinois Repeater Association. So those are the guys that will coordinate your repeaters if you want to put your own repeater up on the air. And who selects them? Basically, it's a very informal organization. You just show up there and start talking. And that's give your 2 cents worth in, and that's how they get them all coordinated. What frequency is within the 6 meter amateur band? If you had happened to get this test on your test, you would know from that we had up there, you divide 6 meter band, you divide 6 into 300. That comes out to 50, and the answer is 52.525. Common calling frequency, it's not exactly 50, but the other 3 answers are not in the 50s at all. So you'll know that this is the correct answer. So it's a good thing to keep that in the back. When you come in and take the test, in your packet there's going to be a blank sheet of paper, scratch paper for you. You'll definitely want to write down the Ohm's law, E over IR. You want to write down the pie chart, P over IE, and then you'll also want to write down the frequency. The frequency in megahertz divided into 300 will give you the band. Those will be the three formulas that will help you answer a lot of the questions in the test. What amateur band are you using when your station's operating on 146.52? We all know that's 2 meter band. That's the big band. It's the most popular band, amateur band going, 146.52. That's also the national calling frequency, the one you want to be put in your mobile when you're traveling down the interstate. You'll be monitoring 146.52. You'll be amazed at how many truck drivers now have got amateur license. And if they see an amateur plate, you never know, they might be calling for you. And it's a 2 meter band. It would be 146 divided into 300. It's almost exactly 2. See, it's not quite 2, but it's close enough that the other answers won't count. What is the limitations for emissions on the 219 to 220? And it's fixed digital message forwarding only. That means it's computer to computer. In that band, that particular band, in that 1 megahertz spread there, 219 to 220, you can only do digital. Which of the HF bands does a technician class operator have on phone privileges? This is one you guys will want to know, not necessarily for the test, but it's a 10 meter band only. In the HF band, you get to operate voice on 10 meters, 28.3 to 28.5. And like I said, the sunspot cycle is supposed to peak in about 2024, I think, maybe 2025. It's still a couple years off. But when the sunspot cycles get really active, the 10 meter band gets really active. And you guys will definitely want to be on 10 meters. Which of the following UHF, VHF frequency range are limited to CW only? These are the very low end of each band. The 6 meter band, 50 up to 50.1. You can only do CW. On the 2 meter band, 144 to 144.1, CW only. For two good reasons. First of all, if it's CW only, there won't be any guys on voice interrupting your signal, messing you guys up. And then since you're CW, it's a very small bandwidth only, the smallest one, 150 cycles, right? You won't be interfering with anyone using voice further up the 2 meter band. Which of the following, secondary. Oh, secondary and primary. There is portions of the 70 centimeter band, the 440 band, and the same deal there. You might run into some non-amateur entities using part of the 440, the 70 centimeter band. If you do, you got to stay away from them. You should not interfere with them. Which bands have frequencies available for RTTY? 10 meters only. 10 meters only is the only band that you can do RTTY and data transmissions. The other bands you can only do CW. With 10 meters you can do RTTY and digital. What is the maximum peak envelope power for a technician on their assigned HF bands? 200 watts. And like I said, 200 watts is more than enough. You really just don't need that more. I've done over 100 countries on 100 watts. Doug, I don't know how many countries you've got. How many? Wow. And you've done it with 100 watts? Yeah. So 100 watts is plenty of power. A lot of technicians say, well, we only get 200 and you guys get 150 or 1,500. Believe me, 200 watts will give you plenty of power. The voluntary guidelines. You've all seen the band plans. Doug's got some more back there, I think, that if you want a band plan. This is a volunteer guideline. You don't have to stay, voice in the voice portion. If you want to be a lead, a bad operator, you'll go down and use voice in the CW portion of the band. The band plan is totally voluntary. You can do anywhere you want, but to be a lady and a gentleman about it, you want to stay within the band plan. Yes?
You use the term lid. Does that stand for something in particular?
Lid? No, I really don't know where it came from. Yeah, you're a lid if you're a bad operator. It's like nobody really knows where the term ham came from. Just one of those things that gets started. There's been a lot of speculation about where ham came from, but anyway, yeah, a lid and a lid is a bad operator. A ham is us, and there's just two terms that I don't know, they just popped up. When you're operating and transmitting and receiving on the same frequency, it's operating simplex. You're transmitting and receiving. On a repeater, it's duplex. You transmit on one, receive on the other one. When you're operating simplex, it means you're transmitting and receiving on the same frequency. It's like a CB channel. If you're on channel 19, you transmit on 19, you receive on 19. Where may phone be used? Above 50 megahertz. Now, above 50 megahertz, that's the UHF and VHF frequencies. We're no longer in the HF frequencies, right? Because in the HF frequencies, you're only allowed sideband on 10 meters. But on above 50, you're allowed some phone above it everywhere. And if you're on a VHF and UHF, we learned earlier that sideband gets you out a little bit further than straight FM does. International rules. The International Telecommunications Union, this is United Nations, and its agreement, the United Nations come about regulating amateur radio frequencies. There are 3 regions, 1, 2, and 3. We are in region 2. Although in the Western Pacific, they are in region 3, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, we're always in region 2, the continental U.S. And yes, the Pacific possessions are in region 3. American Samoa, Guam, see what else is there? Johnston Island. So there's several of them out there. Guam, I don't know if I mentioned that, but they're all in the Pacific. Authorizations, reciprocal operating authority. And what this means is that 2 countries agree that a technician class in the United States can go to their country and operate as a technician class as long as their frequencies operate about the same. Now, when you go to a foreign country, you have to obey by their frequency privileges. So just because you get to do voice on 10 meters here in the United States doesn't necessarily mean you'll get to use voice 10 meters on some foreign countries. You do have to abide by their laws. But it's basically just everyone saying, yeah, if you want to operate over here, you can. There's the International Amateur Radio Permit. This is international in scope, where you can go anywhere in the world. There's another one called the SEP licensing. That's basically for Europe. And if you want to go to Europe, you'll get your SEP licensing, which you'll have in your pocket when you go over there, and you can start operating on their frequencies. And then the international one you could do anywhere in the world. If you are planning on going overseas, I strongly recommend you get a hold of ARRL. You go to their website or you give them a call. They're very helpful in Newington, Connecticut. It's a fine group, a fine organization. And they'll start the paperwork going for you so you can get the international licensing. ARRL website on the international operating. ARRL website should be on your bookmarks or your favorites. You will be going to ARRL a lot. They've got their a store which you can buy shirts like this, books on everything from satellite operation to fox hunting. It's amazing the stuff that ARRL has available for ham radio operators here in the United States. You must comply with the host country's regulations. Now, we can operate from U.S. flagged vehicles. If a ship out in the ocean is flying an American flag, you can operate technician class on all your privileges in technician class. If it's a U.S. flagged ship, right? However, when that U.S. flagged ship goes into a foreign port, Aruba, just off of north part of South America, then you have to start obeying with their laws. You have to stay within their frequency allocations. Contracts with other countries must be allowed by that country. And I think some of you may run into this on the 9th. You have to have their permission to talk. It's easy to get their permission, but you do have to get their permission. They want to know, who's transmitting, just like the FCC wants to know here in the United States who's transmitting on the amateur frequencies. And it is very rare for contacts to be prohibited. Very rare. That's going to happen. If you want to go to Iran for some reason, I doubt if they'll let you transmit. They probably won't give you a license, but they might. But anyway, if they do, you got to abide by their rules and regulations. What is the International Telecommunications Union? It is the United States nation that has coordinated amateur radio throughout the entire world. Types of communications you're permitted to make. It's got to be incidental to the purposes of amateur radio. In other words, you can talk about your antenna, your power, your family. You can talk about this stuff, but it's got to be of a personal nature. You can't start trying to overthrow their government, being very extreme about this. But it can just be the run-of-the-mill conversations that you would probably have with anyone here in the United States anyway. When the foreign country authorizes it, you're able to do it. And they may or may not even give you another call sign. May or may not. If you're operating in France, if I would go to France and I'd get the operating permit, I might go to France and my call sign might be WI9B stroke F. F, the French call signs all start with F. So it'll give you an idea what's going on. If I'd go to Great Britain, it might be WI9B stroke G. Any vessel or craft located in international waters and documented or registered to the United States. They probably won't let you do it unless the pilot is a ham radio operator, but it is, if he says it's okay, you could operate your ham radio from an airplane. Every once in a while, you will hear planes going over where there's ham radio operators talking on 2 meters. So it's kind of interesting, really. But if it's an American flagged vessel or ship or airplane, you're allowed to operate on it. On a ship, they usually won't be too concerned about it. But if you're on an airplane, they will be concerned if you start transmitting. They don't want you screwing up their navigational systems or anything like that. Understandable, right? Prohibited from exchanging. Any country whose administration has notified the International Telecommunications Unit that it objects to communications. For instance, it's been maybe 20, right after the Berlin Wall fell and communism dumped in USSR, Albania was not allowed on the air for 40 years. It was a blackout in that country for 40 years. Albania went to the ITU and said, no ham radio operating in or out of our country. And then about 10 years ago, I happened to be going through the band one night and I heard this really strange call sign that I'd never heard before. And he was calling CQ and no one was answering him, so I went back to him. And we had a very informal little chat and everything. And he gave me another call sign from another country, and I sent my QSL card to that other country. What had happened was a guy from nearby Albania crossed the line, went into Albania and set up a ham radio station. And so I felt really excited about that I got to talk to Albania after it had been quiet for like 40 years. Into Module A. And now we'll go straight into Module B. What time is it, by the way? Oh, good, good. We're making good time here. This next part will be relatively short when we get to 7B. Oh, thank you. Wet my whistle.
The other thing is, Larry asked earlier, actually right at the beginning of this stream, about some clarifications about vanity call signs. So
Okay. Sure. In fact, we will cover that in the 7B. Cover exactly that. Just like a driver's license, it can be pulled. It's a privilege. This next section is fairly short. It's only got about 40 slides in it. And it's all about call signs. The call sign is your radio name. You will be the only person in this world with that call sign. It is your call sign. They have a prefix and a suffix. The prefix is before the number. Here in Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin, we're all 9. Mine is WI, that's the prefix, 9, and B is the suffix. So all of our call signs in this area will have a 9 in the middle of it. They'll have a prefix and a suffix. The prefix tells you your license, what country you're from, basically, if you hear it. If they hear my call sign, WI, they know that all, or most of the call signs, some of the call signs in the United States starts with a W. So they know that it's an American making the call. They also know the 9. They also know that it's in this area of the world. That's kind of neat if you got a beam antenna. You can point at me and get me a little bit better. The suffix indicates the specific licensee. WI means that I'm in the United States. 9 means I'm in this area. And B means I'm the only guy with the B. I'm an extra class. I get a 2x1 call. The prefix is usually 2 or 3 letters assigned by the ITU. So the International Telecommunications Unit, the United Nations, they told the United States that we can have a bunch of different call signs. All of our call signs here in the United States starts with a K. Our club, K9UXZ, K, United States, 9, Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, and then the UXZ is particular to our club, right? Starts with an N. We've got a guy in Altamont that's monitoring the online stuff, Jeff, N9NJN. N means that he's in the United States, 9, he's in Region 9, and NJN, that's his personal designation. So when you put all that together, you get N9NJN. W's. You will hear a lot of just one-letter W calls. If you're an older ham, you'll have like a W9. If you're relatively younger ham, you'll have a W and another letter and a 9. We'll find out why in just a little bit. And then there's also the AA and ALs. Byron, the other guy that was here previous classes, he wasn't here tonight. His is AC9PA. AC, which means United States, 9, our area, and then PA is his personal call sign. So when you stick it all together, you know that he's an American in Region 9, and he's the PA operator in this area. We do go from 0 to 9. You can see on the map the areas of all the different calls. California is the 6th area. California has so many hams in California, they get one whole area just all to themselves. Whereas you can see the others are very spread out with the 5 calls, 0 calls, 7 calls and stuff. Pacific and Caribbean possessions have their special call signs. Oops. See, Kilo Papa is for Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Hawaii. They've all have special designators so you know where they're at. HKs, HLs, and KLs and stuff. So you'll know by their call sign sort of where they're at. This helps if you got a beam antenna. So if you hear the call sign, you can point your antenna to Alaska if you hear it's an Alaskan call. Or you point it out west if you hear it's a Pacific call. These are the call signs. A 1x1, 2x1s. My call sign is a 2x1. WI, B. Two in a prefix and 1 in a suffix. You guys will all have 2x3s. You guys will be KD, 9, and then a P, and then 2 more letters, depending on how many people get their license in front of you. You can also, you're also allowed to have a 1x3 call sign, which is 1 letter, the 9, and then 3 letters behind that. The reason you might want to get into that if you want to get a call sign that maybe your father had, your uncle had, or somebody like that, because you guys could, technician class can only have a 2x3 or a 1x3 call sign. You guys aren't allowed to have a 2x1 like I've got. You're just allowed to have a 2x3 or 1x3s. 1 by 1 is for a special event. If for some reason we want to do a special event station here in Effingham, and we want to commemorate, the interstate system coming through Effingham, we can go to the FCC and we can get a 1 by 1 call sign. It might be something like K9A, K9B, a 1 by 1. It's just nice to have a special call sign like that. Doesn't really mean that much, but it is a specialized call sign you can get. The remaining groups are types A through D and assigned by a licensed class. Like if you're an extra class operator, you can have any combination of the call sign. You can have a 1 by 3, a 2 by 3, a 2 by 2, a 2 by 1, a 1 by 3, all that kind of stuff. Extra class, we can have any combination of letters and numbers. Whereas technician class, like I said, you guys get a 2 by 3 or a 1 by 3 call sign, and you will start out as a 2 by 3. Once you get your license, that is when you can get your vanity call sign. You might want to get, you go to the FCC ULS site, and you might want to get your initials for your suffix. You might look it up, and you can, after you send them your current license, the one you just got, and say, hey, I want to get this license with my initials on it. If it's available, if it's a 2 by 3 with your 3 initials, or if it's a 1 by 3 with your 3 initials, they'll give you that call sign. It's kind of neat. We have a couple people in our club who's got W9 and his initials, and W9 and her initials. They're a married couple, and it's kind of neat. Easy to remember their call signs that way. Indicators, your slash, your stroke, or portable. Here's when you use those things. If I go to Missouri, that's O or zero land, starting with all their calls has zeros in it, and I operate there, I can operate if I want to. I can say this is WI9B portable 0 or stroke 0. This is to let everybody know that I am no longer in 9 land, that I'm now in 0 land. Portable usually indicates that you're in a mobile. If you're at a base station somewhere, then it's usually stroke.
Who's the ham that he was in Florida, moved to this area, and he kept his Florida call sign?
Yeah.
There's one, I can't remember his name, or his call sign, but he
Yeah, that's with me.
was in Florida, moved to this area.
Yeah.
I talked to him a couple times on the repeater. I heard K4 or something.
Yeah, we had that example of one of our guys that moved down to Florida when he retired, KF9HS. He'll be down there. Now, when he's down in Florida, he can just use KF9HS. Randy, if you're listening, hi. Or he can use KF9 Portable 4, something like that. Mobile, aeronautical, and maritime mobile. If you are mobile, you usually say mobile. You know, I'm on a ship or something, then you're WI9B mobile. Upgrade indicators. AG, if you've got a technician class license and you pass the test for general class, you can immediately go on the general class areas. You don't have to wait till it's on the database. You can immediately go in the general class, but you do have to stay AG after your call sign. So it'd be KD9PXX stroke AG. That's letting everybody know that even though you, in the data, if they look it up, you'll be known as you'll show you as a technician class. When you say stroke AG, that means you've just passed the test. It's the same with AE. If you're a general class and you upgrade it to extra, that little length of time in between actually getting on the database, you can say stroke AE. Because if you've got a general class call and you get up into the extra part of the band, guys might be questioning you whether you're allowed up there or not. But if you say AE, stroke AE after your call sign, then they know that you've passed the test. The KT, that's for back when they had the novice class. When you were a novice class, you upgraded to technician, waiting to get on 2 meters and that kind of stuff. But those are just the indicators. You don't hear this very much, mainly because licensing is so quick anymore. When I got my technician class license, it took me about a month and a half to get my license, maybe almost 2 months, just due to the slowness of paperwork. But nowadays with computers and everything, you guys will have your license a week or 10 days. You'll have your license. It'll be on the database. Choosing your call signs. Vanity call signs. Just like vanity license plates, if one is available, and if it corresponds with the 2x3 or 1x3, you can get your own vanity call sign. Doesn't cost anything, it's free. You can pick up any call sign authorized for your license class. Like as an extra class, I can get anything at all. Any combination, 1x1 or 1x2s, 2x1s, anything at all, I can get it. You guys are just going to be stuck again in 2x3 or 1x3 call signs. There it is, the 2x3 and 1x3. To get the vanity call signs, basically the best way of doing it is just getting on one of these websites and seeing if the call sign you would like to have is available. You got it. It's just really that easy. The special event call signs, again, are 1x1. You will not get that. It has to be a special event. And that is reserved for the administration. Club calls. If you start your own ham radio club, it has to be an actual club. I mean, you can't just three of you guys get together. You should have like it's not a regulation, but you know, you need a president and a vice president and all that kind of stuff. And you have to have a club trustee, and it also, your club has to have at least 4 members, by the way. The trustee, if you have a club and you want a club call sign, you have to have somebody to sign off on that call sign, somebody to be responsible for the operation of the club's equipment. And you always try to get the highest class operator you can to do it. Our club, Jeff, N9NJN, he's our club trustee of our call sign. He's an extra class operator. That means on field day, when our club is out there, we can use the entire range of frequencies for everybody, for technician, general, and extra. But if you have like a technician class sign off to be the trustee of your club call sign, then that club can only operate on the technician class privileges. There is one little thing about being a control operator where you can get around that, but bottom line is you want to try to get the highest class license to be your club trustee. Now, some of the questions, and there's not very many of them. If you get this question, what would be a valid call sign for the technician class operator? This would be a 1x3. They use K's and X's on there, but that's a 1x3 call sign, which is legitimate for technician. Also a 2x3. Who may select a desired call sign under the vanity call rules? Any licensed amateur. As soon as you get your license and you want a vanity plate, go for it. And that's it. An hour and 4 minutes later, and we're done with number 7. Next week, we'll be doing number 8, so I want you guys to read through number 8. It will be probably about an hour and a half next week. It's got a few more questions in it. So make sure you read chapter 8. You go ahead and go over the questions. Get online and take those I keep pressing that because I'm really serious about this. Take those online tests. It will really help you remember the questions and answers. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and I will probably see you for the benefit of when the people out there in the cloud watches this program. We are in the midst of the big virus going around. We have not got it in Effingham County yet, the coronavirus. We haven't got it, so we're looking over our shoulders. Probably next week we will be doing just like this again. We will be online next Thursday night, and we will be asking the members who are normally here, if they want to come, fine. If they're scared or anything like that, stay at home. Watch it. We hope by going through the slides with you, you'll be able to understand things just a little bit better. At least understand them long enough to pass the test. That's the main thing. So, thank you all for coming. Have a good evening, everybody.
take me with you. We soar to infinity. We're going at the speed of light. Bring me higher. You lift my feet up from the ground. I wish upon the shooting star that you make me lighter. And now you hit my heart with the speed of light. Hear the rhythm of a heartbeat echoing